Masechet Yoma Daf Vav. Today we're going to be going into some of the laws of Nida, specifically the law of Bo'el Nida. A man who has relations with a woman who is Nida, what is his status in terms of Tum'ah? So let's first see how we get there. So we're going back to the Mishnah. Mafrishin Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol has to separate for 7 days before Yom Kippur. We ask, Lama Mafrishin? Why? Why does he have to separate for 7 days? Now we interrupt. Lama mafrishin? Kedekamrinan. Either Rabbi Yochanan kedeitle, either Shakish kedeitle. What kind of question you're asking? We've been discussing this for 4 dapim already, and 4 dapim already. If you can follow Rabbi Yochanan, remember his reason was because we learn it from the inauguration day. Or you can follow the Shakish. He learns it from Moshe at Har Sinai before you're entering Kedusha. Actually, we saw, according to the Shakish, he ends up going into it's a Chumrah, the Rabbanan. Rabbi Yochanan only said that regarding Paraduma. He sticks with the learning from inauguration day the whole time. Okay, in either case, we already have a couple of good reasons for this. So why are you asking again? So here's what we meant to ask. Why does he have to leave? Here is his house, but the word beto could also mean his wife. In Aramaic also, debitu, which literally means of his house. That's how you say wife in Aramaic. So also Hebrew. So the question is not why does he separate and have to be in the Bet HaMikdash? The question is why does he separate from his wife? In other words, even if he has to be in the Bet HaMikdash because you want him to train and learn there, why not bring his wife also so that he can be together with his wife? Why does he have to separate from her specifically? And here we get the answer. Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera Omer, Shema timase ishto sefek nida v'yavo aleha. Because perhaps his wife will be in a doubtful state of nida, and if he has relations with her, then that Kohen Gadol will be tameh, and that's a problem because then he won't be able to serve in the Bet HaMikdash. So therefore, not only separate to be in the Bet HaMikdash, that's also a good thing, but also to separate and not be with his wife for this because of purity. Okay, now this is actually a baraita, so this answer is earlier than all the other ones we've seen before. Rabbi Yochanan and Shakish are second generation Amoraim. So this is probably the oldest answer. So in fact, this the interruption here, you can read it straight through Lama Mafrishin, and you can go right to the Baraita, right? Because even though in the Masechet we brought Rabbi Yochanan Shakish before, chronologically the Rabbi Yehuda ben Betara's answer is actually earlier. Okay, and also we quoted this already to help out Resh Lakish, because Resh Lakish, who learns it from Moshe only separated for 6 days. So we wondered, how about 7 days? And so we said, even Shakish is relying on the Yehuda ben Betera and adding this answer. So yeah, we actually already have seen this. The Yehuda ben Betera is an interesting person because he is a Tana. He lived during the time of the Bet HaMikdash, but not in Eretz Yisrael. He lived in Nisivin, in Bavel, in Syria, Turkey. So we know very little about Bavel during the period of the Tanaim, but this is one very, very important figure who did live at the time. Okay, so his answer is that his wife will be safek nida. Now, we're not worried that she's going to be a full nida, because a Kohen Gadol is not going to be with his wife if he's full nida. But a case where, let's say she saw something, it's a weird color, she's not sure, and he says, it's all right. So that's what we're worried about. Now we ask a question about that. Are we talking about a wicked person? I mean, we know the Kohen Gadol at some periods of time, he wasn't always the most knowledgeable. Sometimes he had Sadducean tendencies, whatever. He wasn't always the greatest guy, but he wasn't like a wicked person that he's going to be with his wife when she is safek nida. Rather, we are reinterpreting his words to say maybe he will be with his wife when he thinks that she's totally fine, totally tahor, and then afterwards she sees some blood, maybe a minute after, maybe an hour or 6 hours after, whatever it is, and then she's not sure. Although she saw blood afterwards, when did it start? Did it start before she was with her husband, Kohen Gadol, or after? That's the case. That could happen even to someone who's not a Rasha, and therefore, even though it was by mistake, nevertheless, we want to make sure that Kohen Gadol is tahor. So therefore, don't be with your wife at all. All right. So now we have that answer. Now we amaru harabanan kamed Rav Chisda keman kerebi Akiva. So the sages, now we're going down to Rav Chisda is a third generation Amora in Eretz Yisrael, and so the rabbis expressed this opinion to Rav Chisda, and they said this reason of Rabbi Yehuda ben Betara, it must follow the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Damar nida metamea et bo'alaha, because Rabbi Akiva says someone who's in nida, even retroactively, causes her husband also to have the same status. So in general, if a woman is nida, she's nida for 7 days, seven full days, she cannot go to the mikveh until night. Right? We're not talking about zava. It's not similar to what we do nowadays. We're talking about the biblical nida. She's the first day she sees blood, she starts counting that day, not clean days. And then she goes to the mikveh after 7 days. On the 8th night, she can go to the mikveh. She waits till sunset of the next day. So really 8 days altogether. And then she is tahor. She has to add an extra day, really, the Rabbanan, because maybe she might be bleeding. She might see blood even till through the 7th day. And if she sees on the 8th day, she won't be sure, is that nida, is that zava? So she has to stop for 1 day to make sure she has 1 clean day. Okay, that's the laws of nida. Now, a man who sleeps with a nida has 2 problems. Number 1 is a prohibition. He's not allowed to do that. That applies till today. That's what all Tarat Mishpacha is about. A second problem that we don't have to worry about today is that it becomes tameh. We don't worry about tumah today. So now, when he becomes tameh, at what level does it become tameh? If a man touches a nida, he becomes tameh only for 1 day. He sits on the bed that nida sat on only 1 day. But if he's together with a nida, then the man is also tameh for 7 days. Good. Everyone agrees with that. The question here between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbanan is, what if a nida, she thought she was okay at the time they had relations, only afterwards she saw blood. So she is going to have to be machmir and say, well, maybe the blood was there from before, so she's tameh for 7 days. Does that apply to the husband also? Does he have to have that extra chumrah and say, well, maybe she saw blood before they had relations, so now he also has to be tameh for 7 days? Rabbi Akiva says yes, he's machmir, and Rabbanan say no. So therefore, the Rabbanan's opinion to Rav Chisda is that since now that we reinterpret Rabbi Yehuda ben Betara to be talking about not someone who slept with a safek nida, but rather someone who slept with a woman who was fine. She seemed to be totally clean at the time they had relations, only after she saw blood and it's retroactive. And so since that's what we're worried about, we're separating the Kohen Gadol from his wife for 7 days before Yom Kippur, so that he will not have this problem of retroactive nida status. Therefore, this must follow Rabbi Akiva, who thinks that a husband does get retroactive nida status. Because if we follow Rabbanan think that when the woman sees blood after they had relations, although she has to be machmir and she's nida, it does not transfer to the man who was with her. If it does not transfer to the man, then there's no need to worry about the v'timsa sefek nida. Okay, so that's what the rabbis proposed to Rav Chisda. However, Rav Chisda says, Amar lahu Rav Chisda, afilu temru Rabbanan, ad kana peligi Rabbanan aled Rabbi Akiva ela be'achad achad. Rav Chisda says, no, we don't want to be Yehuda ben Betara or this whole opinion to be only according to Rabbi Akiva. We want it to be according to everybody, and it can be, because even Rabbanan agree that there is retroactive status of tum'ah both for her and for him if she sees blood immediately after they were together. He only disagrees if it's way after. So if it's a couple of hours later, then yeah, you're right. Only Rabbi Akiva would make him tameh. But this could be talking about a case, and we have to worry about a case where she sees blood immediately after, and then even Rabbanan would agree that he is in fact tameh, and that's why we're going to separate the Kohen Gadol from his wife for 7 days, because maybe he'll have relations with her, thinking that she's tahor, and that technically would be fine. But if she does see blood immediately after, then he's going to go into a state of retroactive tum'ah. אמר רבי זרע, שמאמינה בו על נידה אינו כנידה וטובל ביום. Okay, now that we made that comparison, now we want to ask, is a bo'al nida like a nida for other things? A nida has to wait full 7 days and then go to the mikveh only the night after the seven full days, and then wait until that the next day, the end of the 8th day, before she can be considered tahor. So does that apply to him also? So we can see from here that bo'al nida is not like that. Bo'al nida, even though he's tameh for 7 days, he can go to the mikveh on the 7th day, and he's fine at night. How does he know it from this? Well, look, how long is the Kohen Gadol separating from his wife? Only 7 days. So therefore, right, if he was with his wife right at the edge of the first day, so he's counting 7 days. That's this very same 7 days that he is in quarantine. On the last day, the Erev Yom Kippur, he goes to the mikveh. So he has to go to mikveh during the day, because if you can't go to mikveh until nighttime, that's actually Leil Yom Kippur, and that's no good. He's going to be tameh on Yom Kippur. So therefore, it must be that even though a husband who is with his wife when she is nida, he becomes nida for 7 days, but well, she has to go to the mikveh the next night. It must be the man can go to the mikveh during the day, and then once sunset comes, he's totally fine and he can serve on Yom Kippur. This is what I just said, right? If you say Bon Nida is the same as Nida, then he's not going to go to the mikveh till the nighttime, and the next day, how can he do avodah? He needs to wait till he has to go to the mikveh and wait till sunset. Yom Kippur will be over. Although he's tameh for 7 days, he can go during the day. Right, we don't want to limit ourselves only to that one opinion. I can even explain that your bo'al nida is the same as nida. He also has to wait and go to the mikveh only the night after. And that can fit with our Mishnah, because all you have to do is add 1 more hour. So actually the Kohen Gadol is sequestered for 7 days plus an hour before. So even if he was with his wife the day before he goes into separation, that still counts as day 1. And so we're going to have an hour before sunset. So we count that as day 1. And then 6 days into his separation, that's day 7 for him. He can go to the mikveh that night, wait the next day, which is the 7th day of his separation, and then that night will be Yom Kippur, and he's fine. So if you just by adding a few minutes to the day before, then it's fine, and we can equate the laws. Good. Nida v'yoledet tevilatan balayla. Nidain bo'al nida la. Okay, now that we brought up this topic of is a bo'al nida like a nida in terms of does he also have to wait till night, we're going to bring 3 baraita to try to prove one way or another. So let's look at this baraita. It says everyone who has to go to the mikveh, anyone who's becomes tameh and goes to the mikveh during the day, except for 2 people, nida and yoledet. They have to go at night. So there you go. This is a good proof. Nida has to go at night, but no one else. Bo'al nida, a husband who is with a nida, he can go during the day. So this is a proof, according that of the first possibility above, that bo'al nida can go during the day. Is that a good proof? Not necessarily. Nida v'chol da'atem miribuya. You could say that when we say nida has to go at night, it means not only the woman who's nida, but also the man who became tameh because of the nida. So that might be included in this category, and therefore, a man who sleeps with a nida becomes tameh for 7 days, and he also perhaps has to be wait till the nighttime of the 8th. In order to go to the mikveh. Okay, so we don't have a proof yet. Second attempt. Metibe bal keri kemaga sheretz. Well, nida kitme met. Okay, that's the braita. It says bal keri, right? Anyone who saw seminal emission is the same as someone who touched a sheretz. What they have in common is that they are tameh for 1 day, and they go to the mikveh during that very day, and they wait till it gets dark, and then they're okay. Bo'al nida, this is the one relevant for us, kitmeh met. Now, someone who touches a corpse is tameh for 7 days, just like Bo'al nida is tameh for 7 days. Now, my love litvila, why are we comparing them? Is it not to teach us that just like someone who has corpse impurity can go to the mikveh during the day, right? He can go, it's fine to be during the day. So too, Bo'al nida, the husband, he can also go during the day. He can go to the mikveh during the day, right? And now we have a proof that the husband of someone who was nida, who sleeps with her while she's nida, he has to wait 7 days, but he can go to the mikveh during the day, right? No, lola tumatan. No, maybe we're just comparing them in terms of the length of time that they are tameh. They're both 7 days, but we're not comparing them necessarily to about when they can go to the mikveh. Now we question that. Tumatan bejaketibu. Hi tumat shibat ketibe. Hi tumat shiba ketibe. Wait, I wouldn't need a braita to tell me that as the 7 days of tum'ah for nida and tememet, those are both explicit pisukim. So if this braita is coming to tell us comparison, bon nida tememet, so it must be teaching us something else, something different. What else is it teaching? It's teaching us about the time when you can go to the mikveh, so both during the day. So actually, this does look like it would be a good proof. Elalav litvilatan, right? So it's proving that they can go during the day. It says no, not necessarily. It's not a proof. Lo leolam letumatam sefa istirichale ela shechamur mimenu bo nida שמטמא משכב ומושב בטומאת קלה, לטמא אוכלין ומשכין. The chidush is not that it's that 7 days. We know that from the Pesukim. And the chidush is not that he can go during the day. Really, he has to wait at night. The chidush of the comparison is the level of tum'ah that the Bo'el Nida would have. And this is the continuation of the Braita, which now we can read. The Bo'el Nida is mitameh mishkav umoshav with a light Nida. So in other words, a Nida who sits on, this is a difference between corpse tum'ah and a Nida. Someone who is tameh because he touched a dead body, he only makes other things tameh by touching them, not by sitting. Whereas nida, if a nida sits on something, even without touching it, let's say there's 3 cushions, she sits on the top one, everything underneath, because her weight was on it, also becomes tameh. So that's something that's true for nida. It's also true for bo'el nida, right? The husband who slept with a woman who's nida, he's tameh for 7 days, and something he sits on gets a tum'ah, but although it's only tum'ah kala, it's only a secondary level that such that it's like a rishon that only makes food and drink tameh, not other liquids. That's the chidush that's saying. So it brings the comparison to say bo'el nida is like corpse impurity, and that they're the same for all matters except for the sitting impurity that only applies to bo'el nida and not tememet. So that's the chidush. It's not telling us anything about daytime or nighttime. So no, there's no proof from there. So last one, Tashema detanir bichia hazav v'hazava v'hamesora v'hamesorat u'bo'el nida utme me'tvilatan bayom. There you go. We have an explicit source, right? Hazav, zava, mesora, mesorat is good for Parashat HaShavua, but this is one for us. Bo'el nida and tememet, they can go to the mikveh during the day. Nida v'yoledet v'ilatan b'layla. Nida v'yoledet, those are the only 2 that need to go at night. Tiyufta. So there you go. This is an absolute refutation of the opinion that said bo'el nida has to go at night. No, it's okay. You can go during the day. And now this fits with our Mishnah perfectly, because this means that the Kohen Gadol can be with his wife before the 7 days. And hopefully she'll be tahor and everything. But even just in case she ended up being a nida, she realized afterwards. And so even if he becomes tameh, it's all right, because he'll start counting. He can go to the mikveh on the 7th day, and then he'll be totally tahor at night and all prepared and ready for Yom Kippur. And so this makes sense. Now, okay. Now another question. We just compared tumat nida to bo'el nida to tumat met. So once you brought up that's a good question. Why don't we separate him not only from his house and from his wife, but also from any possibility of tumat met? Now, what could happen? Maybe he'll have a visitor, and the visitor will have a heart attack while he's visiting, and then he's going to be in the room with the met, or maybe even touch the met. So maybe we should prohibit anyone from coming into his room and have any contact with him. That would actually miss the whole point of why we separate him. We separate him so that the two sages can come and teach him all day long. But why don't we worry about tumat met? If you're so worried about his tumah status, Amarav tachlifa abu derav huna bar tachlifa mishme derava. Zot omeret tumat hamet hutrahi basibur. Amazing. So since we don't worry about it, this proves that even if the Kohen Gadol did become tameh met, he would still be permitted to go through with all of the sacrifices, all of the avodah of Yom Kippur. Right? We saw this in Masechet Pesachim already. If most of the community is tameh, they can go ahead and prepare Korban Pesach, even though they're tameh, which actually applies nowadays. Technically, we can go and do it. And so too, the Kohen Gadol is tameh. He can nevertheless a private person, if I just want to bring my own korban todah and I'm tameh, I can't do it. I have to wait. But we're talking about something that's in public. A public offering can be brought if he's tameh. So therefore, you see, we don't worry. This only applies to tumat met, by the way, right? For korban pesach also. Only if the majority of the community is tameh met, then they can bring it anyway. If they're tameh for something else, then it's not allowed. And that is why it does apply nowadays, because we can go to the mikveh, we can become tahor for all the other kinds of tumah. It's just tumat met, we need the paraduma, which we don't have. But that one is okay. All right, so that's a proof. Now, Ravina Amar, afilu tema tumat met dechuyahi basibur, tumat met la shechicha, tumat beto shechicha. Okay, now we have to explain this concept of tumat met dechuya. Beforehand, we said tumat met hutra. There's two opinions. When you say you can override tum'ah and still nevertheless perform all the service even while you're tameh, is it that it's hutra, it becomes totally permitted? Or the second opinion is dichuya, it becomes overridden. The difference is kind of like, if there's a red light, but there's a traffic cop that says go through. So the traffic cop is more important than the light. Right? You're not passing a red because the traffic cop is instead of the light. Ignore the light. You did something totally allowed. You can't get a ticket for that. Whereas if you're driving your wife to the hospital because she's pregnant and you have to pass through a red, right? Or you have to speed. So it's not actually permitted. Technically, you can still get a ticket. It's just that the cop is going to say, okay, you have overriding circumstances. So even though you violated the law, it's okay. So that's the question. Is it totally permitted for the Kohen Gadol to perform the service on Yom Kippur even when he's tameh? If it's totally permitted, then you're right. He doesn't have to worry about tumat met at all. And Ravina is coming even according to the other opinion that said it's overridden. Like, what could we do? It's a problem, but all right, we have to do it anyway. Nevertheless, we don't have to worry about it because so according to that opinion, you'd still want to try your best for him not to be tameh met. So you might still want to separate and make sure no one comes in contact with him. But even that opinion would agree that there's a difference between tumat met, which is very rare. It's very rare. Someone's going to come in and all of a sudden get a heart attack and die. Whereas tum'ah from his house, being with his wife, that does happen, and so we have to worry about that. So it makes sense to separate him from his wife and not separate him from anyone coming in and visiting him. Good. Itmar tumat hamet. Rav Nachman amar hutrahi basibur. Rav Sheshat amar dechuyahi basibur. Okay, so now that we mentioned these two opinions, now we're going to quote them, right? And this is opinion between Rav Nachman, who says tumat met is totally permitted. Like you don't even have to hold back, right? Once it's permitted, it's totally fine. Rav Sheshat says no, it's overridden, but you should try to limit it as much as possible because really it's not okay. We're just going to override it, but the isur is still there. Now, hecha diika temeinu torin bahu bet av. We're going to apply this to what actual case. What would be the nafkamina between them? So if it's a situation where the bet av, right, all the kohanim were split into ma'amadot, 24 of them, and each clan would serve a different day. So if that bet av, that clan of kohanim, who was appointed to serve in the Bet HaMikdash on any given day, if there were within them, some people were tameh, some of the kohanim were tahor, then everyone agrees that Tehorin Abdeh, Temein La Abdeh. You have people from that clan who can serve, so let them serve. There's no need at all to make it to have the Temeim serve. Let them stand outside, and the Tehorim, they will do the service, so the clan gets their chance. Everyone agrees with that. The question is it necessary to go and find other Kohanim from a different clan, right? If they, let's say this whole clan is Tameh. So it's not half and half, the whole clan is Tameh. So should we make them all stand outside and go get other Kohanim, even though it's not their turn, to serve instead? So according to Rav Nachman, Heteri basibur v'la mehadrina. Rav Nachman says, since these Kohanim who are chosen, that's their turn, and they're tameh, but since he says hutra basibur, so therefore it's totally permitted. No, you don't have to worry about it at all. We don't, even though there are kohanim that are tahor outside from the next week's clan, you don't have to go and ask them to come and do it. You can do it betumah, no problem. Rav Sheshat amar dechoyai basibur mehadrinan. Rav Sheshat says the prohibition is still there, still not good. So therefore, if this clan is totally tameh, go and find people from another clan, even though it's not their turn. Because it's only overridden, but if you don't have to override it, better not to. So that would be one way of applying their difference of halacha. But there's a second way of interpreting it. Ika de amre, afilu hecha de ika teorin utmin bahu bet av, palig Rav Nachman, v'amar abdi name abdi name temein. But others say that even if it's half in that very clan, that that Rav Nachman would say that the Temein can even do it. Rav Nachman's the one that said Hutra Besibur is totally fine. So even though within this clan there's 50 Kohanim and 25 are Temeh, 25 are Tahor, even though the Tahor ones can do everything, since he says Hutra, he's so Mekel that he can say, no, even the ones who are Temeh can come from that clan. In other words, you really don't have to worry about it at all. They can come and do it. The kol tumat met basibur rachamana sharia, because anything that has to do with a public sacrifice, a communal sacrifice, rachamana sharia is totally permitted, and therefore it's totally fine. So just one last point, applying this to Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol does lots of different sacrifices in Yom Kippur. A lot of them are communal sacrifices, but he does also bring a pat and ayil for his own, from himself, right, for his own family. And yet even that he would be permitted to do because it's necessary for him to do on this day. It's not like individual sacrifice that he's just bringing as a nedava, as a necessary sacrifice that's also considered like a communal sacrifice, and he would even be able to bring that. So amazing halacha, and so we learned some interesting applications to Alchot Nida as well. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, amen ve'amen.